No, you have to read, no?
Yes, Rangada, we have to read.
Okay, then Archana, you read?
Yes, Rangada. I
Okay.
think you have shared your Skype connection and they have joined you and not the group.
Ah, okay. So now I have told them to disconnect, and now I can see all of you, and you can hear me. I have told them to connect afterwards.
Okay, Rangada.
Yeah. Okay.
It is no doubt a fact that once truth or good manifests, the conception of falsehood and evil becomes a possibility. For whenever there is an affirmation, its negation becomes conceivable. As the manifestation of existence, consciousness, and delight made the manifestation of non existence, inconscience, insensibility conceivable, and because conceivable, therefore in a way inevitable. For all possibilities push towards actuality until they reach it. So is it with these contraries of the aspects of the divine existence. It may be said on this ground that these opposites, since they must be immediately perceivable by the manifesting consciousness on the very threshold of manifestation, can take rank as implied uh, absolutes and are inseparable from all cosmic existence. But it must first be noted that it is only in cosmic manifestation that they become possible. They cannot pre exist in the timeless being, for they are incompatible with the unity and bliss that are its substance. In cosmos also, they cannot come into being except by a limitation of truth and good into partial and relative forms, and by a breaking up of the unity of existence and consciousness into separative consciousness and separative being. For where there is oneness and complete mutuality of consciousness force, even in multiplicity and diversity, there truth of self knowledge and mutual knowledge is automatic, and error of self ignorance and mutual ignorance is impossible. So, too, where truth exists as a whole on a basis of self aware oneness, falsehood cannot enter and evil is shut out of the exclusion. Evil is shut out by the exclusion of wrong consciousness and wrong will and their dynamization of falsehood and error. As soon as separateness enters, these things also can enter. But even this simultaneity is not inevitable. If there is sufficient mutuality, even in the absence of an active sense of oneness, and if the separate beings do not transgress or deviate from their norms of limited knowledge, harmony and truth can still be sovereign, and evil will have no gate of entry. There is therefore no authentic, inevitable cosmicity of falsehood and evil, even as there is no absoluteness even as there is no absoluteness. There are circumstances or results that arise only at a certain stage when separativeness culminates in opposition and ignorance, in a positive unconsciousness of knowledge, and a resultant wrong consciousness and wrong knowledge with its content of wrong will, wrong feeling, wrong action, and wrong reaction. The question is at what juncture of cosmic manifestation the opposites enter in. Or it may be either at some stage of the increasing involution of consciousness in separative mind and life, or only after the plunge into inconscience. This resolves itself into the question whether falsehood, error, wrong, and evil exist originally in the mental and vital planes and are native to mind and life, or are proper only to the material manifestation, because inflicted on mind and life there by the obscurity arising from the inconscience. It may be questioned too whether, if they do exist in supraphysical mind and life, they were original and inevitable there, or they may rather have entered in as a consequence or a supraphysical extension from the material manifestation. Or if that is untenable, it may be that they arose as an enabling supraphysical affirmation in the universal mind and life, a precedent, necessity for their appearance in that manifestation to which they more naturally belong as an inevitable outcome of the creative inconscious.
Okay. Very big para, and he is discussing the where can the evil and suffering and perversion come in? At what stage does it come in? Because he has told us very clearly, at the highest level in Satchidananda, there is absolutely no question of evil and suffering there. There is absolutely no question. But in the physical world, we see that suffering is there, evil is there. Okay, so where, at what point does it come in? This is the question he is discussing here in the, and he has also told us that suffering and evil are results. They are not fundamental. They don't have a fundamental reality which exists by themselves. Just like light and shadow. Shadow does not exist by itself. It's a conditional reality depending on light. Exactly in the same way, evil is a product of good when it reduces itself. Okay, like shadow, when the shadow is there, when the light is thrown on something. Okay, so exactly the same way. That suffering is a result of ananda, which is reducing itself, diminishing itself. So this is what he is discussing in this para. So what I do, it's a long para, therefore, I'll first, we'll read the summary, okay, and then we will go center by center. It's a very big para, okay. So, and today we started late because of the problem with the horrible two people. So I'll do one thing. I think I've given them a wrong link. So I'll look into that later on. But now we'll just, I'm summarizing for you. Okay, so in this para that we've just now read, what is he saying? So truth and good alone exist in the supreme absolute, the divine, and not their contraries, okay, which are falsehood and evil. Truth is there in the divine, but there is no falsehood. There is good in the divine, but there is no evil. So where does it come in? Okay. But the moment truth and good manifest in the physical world, they subject themselves to limitation, therefore to distortion and perversion. And so their opposites can enter in simultaneously in the manifestation. Next, as manifestation of such Chit Shakti Ananda becomes a reality, and as their conception also become possible, so too their opposites become conceivable, therefore realities. Consequently, all dualities appear in the world. On that ground alone, it may be stated that in the manifested world, just 1 second. On that ground alone, it can be stated that in the manifested world, truth and falsehood, good and evil become permanent companions in the cosmos. And that is the dualities. So there's no doubt about it that in the physical world, we are dualities. To every principle, there is an equal and opposite principle, which is valid in the physical world. Okay, then, having said that, we must immediately add a rider, a condition. These dualities exist only in the manifested world and not in the supraphysical planes, in the timeless and spaceless. They do not exist. In the cosmos, falsehood and evil come in because of limitation of consciousness and force and the breakup of unity into the many. There are these two principles which come in, give the falsehood and evil. What are the two principles? One is manifestation, therefore limitation. Okay, there is a limitation. Second is the one becoming the many. Okay, so these two are the ones that are creating falsehood in the world. They don't exist in the spiritual worlds. Even in the manifestation, the simultaneity of truth and falsehood, good and evil, is not inevitable. So now he is adding another thing, because a yogi even in the physical world, in his consciousness, it need not be like that at all. Okay. Where even in the cosmos, there is complete mutuality and oneness of consciousness and force, there cannot be any falsehood and evil. In other words, when you go to the cosmic consciousness, you are one with everybody. Therefore, there cannot be any distortion. Okay? There is complete mutuality and oneness of consciousness and force. There cannot be any falsehood or evil. Under the conditions of mutuality and oneness, only truth and good can exist. So we see that even in the manifested cosmos, there is no inevitability of falsehood and evil. One can enter into a consciousness in the physical world where there is no evil and no falsehood. All separation culminates in opposites, dualities. Thus, knowledge becomes ignorance, consciousness becomes unconsciousness, and this makes possible wrong consciousness, wrong knowledge, wrong feeling, wrong will, wrong action and reaction. Now, a question arises. Where does separation begin? Allowing all wrongness to enter? Does the multiplicity begin in the evolutionary process itself? Or does it come only after the evolutionary process starts on the upward journey back to Satchidananda? Okay, I think Sridhar is asking the question now. He's saying, when there is involution from the highest level, when Satchidananda is coming down, in that descent is the evil and just 1 second, I'm getting a call, I just answer. Hello. Yeah, I think I've given you a wrong link, because this is a group link. So I'll get back to you today. It won't be possible. Now I'm talking with others in the class, so I'll see how to solve the problem. Okay. I think I'll let you know later. I'll let you know later in the day. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But I'll send you on WhatsApp. Yeah. He's having trouble joining, so naturally there's a problem with the link. I'll let him know afterwards. So now Sridhar is asking a very interesting question. Okay, we agree that at the highest level, there is no falsehood and no evil and no suffering. But in the physical world, there is absolutely no doubt that it is there. Okay, falsehood is there, evil is there, suffering is there. So now question Sridhar is asking, is the falsehood and evil and suffering coming in the descent, in the manifestation itself, or is it in the evolution going upwards? You follow what I'm saying? So this is the question. Where does exactly this evil and all these things come? Okay. Where does separation begin? Allowing wrongness to enter? Does the multiplicity begin in the evolutionary process itself? Or does it come only at the evolutionary process starting from the upward journey back to Satchidananda? Is it that inconscience inflicts its darkness on the upper principles of life and mind? And again, is it possible that in the supraphysical planes, the multiplicity exists in seed form without the final manifested forms, which enables the sprouting and blossoming of the many in the world? This is what he is discussing. So, clear now? So, two things clear. No suffering, no evil in the divine at the highest level. But there is definitely suffering and evil in the physical world, although it is not essential. Okay. A yogi can enter into a consciousness where he sees that there is no suffering and no evil at all. He sees them in a totally different way. Okay. So it's possible for that individual consciousness to see that there is no falsehood and no evil. They are only circumstantial conditions of the truth, good, and Ananda. So this is a question that is asking. Now he will answer and he will tell you later on that it is in the evolutionary thing that the suffering and evil come. In matter, there is no suffering and no evil. But as soon as life comes in, these opposites start coming in. He will tell you that later on. Okay. So now we will go back to the beginning of the para and see. You understand the language. Okay. It's clear what he's saying. In that involutionary descent, there is only a distortion. There's a diminution. Okay. But the distortion comes in the upward movement. As far as I remember, that's what he says. So we'll go back to now the beginning of the para and see what he's saying. I think we'll be able to finish it. It is no doubt. I read each sentence. Okay, so you can hear me now clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sunki, I'll ask you a question after we finish the class.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm reading each sentence. It is no doubt a fact that once truth or good manifests, okay, comes down into the physical world, the conception of falsehood and evil becomes a possibility. Okay? For whenever there is an affirmation, its negation becomes conceivable because the creation, manifestation is a creation, and the creation is infinite. So when you are creating one thing, all the possibilities, all the grades of that something come into play. Okay, it just cannot be only one. As I said, if you are manifesting light, why should light be only of say 100 watts? It can be 1000 watts, it can be 10,000 watts, it can also be 50 watts, it can be 0 watts. So why can it be only 0 watts? It can be also minus 1000 watts. So the negative things also come in. Manifestation implies infinite creation, and therefore the opposites come in. Okay, so this is what he's saying. It is no doubt a fact that once truth and good manifests, the conception of falsehood and evil becomes a possibility. And he's explaining why. Because. The word for is here used as because. Because whenever there is an affirmation, something positive, its negation becomes a conceivable because of the infinite creation. As the manifestation of existence, consciousness, and delight made the manifestation of non-existence, inconscience, insensibility conceivable, and because conceivable, therefore in a way inevitable. For all possibilities push towards actuality until they reach it. So is it with these contraries of the aspects of divine existence. Manifestation is the problem. Okay, that much is established. But now the point is, at which point in manifestation? It may be said on this ground that these opposites, okay, opposites are truth, falsehood, okay, ananda, suffering, the good, evil, all these are the opposites. Okay. It may be said on this ground that these opposites, since they must be immediately perceivable by the manifesting consciousness on the very threshold of manifestation, can take rank as implied absolutes and are inseparable from all cosmic existence. Now, what Srimad is saying, note the first words, okay? It may be said. In other words, someone can argue, okay? Someone, Isa Srimad is arguing, but he's saying, someone can argue on this ground that since they are opposites, the moment the manifestation starts, okay, they become possible. In that case, it must be held, it must be possible to say that they are there already implied. Falsehood is implied in truth, okay? Suffering is implied in ananda. Otherwise, as soon as manifestation starts, how do they become real? Okay, so this is the argument being given. Okay, let's see how Srinivasan deals with the argument. Okay. It may be said on this ground that these opposites must be immediately perceivable by the manifesting consciousness on the very threshold of manifestation. Threshold at the supramental overmind level. Threshold, okay, the very starting point. The threshold is any building, just at the main door, the threshold is just before the main door. Okay, so in the overmind, the division takes place. But he's saying now that even if possible, then in the supermind, they are there as potential. They may not be openly visible, but they may be, truth may be hiding in itself the possibility of falsehood. Ananda may be hiding in itself the possibility of suffering. That's what he's saying. Then let's see what his argument is. Okay. Since they must be immediately perceivable by the manifesting consciousness on the very threshold of manifestation, you can say, can take rank as implied absolutes and are inseparable from all cosmic existence. So in the cosmic existence, they are inseparable. If there is truth, there is bound to be absolute, falsehood. If there is Ananda in the physical world, there is bound to be also suffering. Can take is an argument being given. Now the answer to that. But it must first be noted that it is only in cosmic manifestation that they become possible. Okay, so it must be noted that it is only in cosmic, even if it is latent, even if it is implied, okay, even if it is hiding, it becomes a reality only in the physical world. That's what Srinivasan is saying. It must be noted first. How does he say that? Because when you go, a yogi goes into the spiritual planes of consciousness, he does not see evil. He does not have any suffering. So it cannot be there in the downward movement. Okay? Even in the nirvana consciousness, there is no suffering. That was the basis of the Buddhist philosophy. Okay, so it must be there only in the physical world. That's what he's saying. It may be said on this ground that these opposites, that we read, but it must first be noted that it is only in my cosmic manifestation that they become possible. They cannot pre-exist in the timeless being. How to say that? Because of experience. When you go into the spiritual planes, level 2, there is all these things disappear. No falsehood, no error, and no suffering. For they are incompatible with the unity and bliss that are its substance. Okay? In cosmos also, they cannot come into being except by limitation of truth and good into partial and relative forms, and by breaking up of the unity of existence and consciousness into separative consciousness and separative being. What he's saying is that a normal human being, he is in a separative consciousness. The moment you are in a separative consciousness, means ego. The moment you feel that you are separate from others, evil, suffering are possible, falsehood. But the moment your consciousness goes into a cosmic consciousness, there is no separation. I feel myself one with everybody. It is impossible for suffering to exist or falsehood. That's what he's saying. So too, where truth exists as a whole on a basis of self-aware oneness. Self-aware oneness. When you reach a consciousness for the individual who is in a cosmic consciousness, there can be no evil and no suffering. So too, when truth exists as a whole on a basis of self-aware oneness, falsehood cannot enter, and evil is shut out by the exclusion of wrong consciousness and wrong will and their dynamization of falsehood and error. So it's not possible. Even I'm living in the physical world, but my consciousness is up there, no suffering for me. As soon as separateness enters, these things also can enter. So separation comes with the ego. Okay. So long as the ego is there, you are going to have suffering, falsehood, and evil. So, if there is sufficient mutuality, now another question. Because when you rise to the cosmic consciousness, your mutuality is not 100%. Okay, it can be partial. So, if there is sufficient mutuality, even in the absence of an active sense of oneness, and if the separate beings do not transgress or deviate from their norms of limited knowledge, harmony, and truth, okay, harmony and truth can still be sovereign, and evil will have no gate of entry. So, Swami is saying that in the spiritual planes of consciousness, even if you are partially aware of the oneness, mutuality. Mutuality means you feel one with everybody else. So if you feel one with everybody else, your harmony and truth can still be sovereign, and evil will have no gate of entry. There is therefore no authentic, inevitable cosmicity of falsehood and evil, even as there is no absoluteness. So, in the physical world also, okay, falsehood and evil cannot enter if the individual is in a consciousness of the cosmic consciousness. Depends on the consciousness. Okay? Even as there is no absoluteness, they are circumstances or results. The word results is very interesting. They are results only. They are not fundamental. They are results. They are circumstances or results that arise only at a certain stage when separativeness culminates in opposition. Okay? When separativeness culminates, separativeness starts at the overmind level, but it culminates in the physical world. Okay? In opposition and ignorance, in a positive unconsciousness of knowledge and a resultant wrong consciousness and wrong knowledge with its content of wrong evil, wrong feeling, wrong action, wrong reaction. So Siddha is saying, when you are in a consciousness of ego, the sense of separateness, these things can exist for you. Otherwise, they don't exist. Okay? One question arises here, which you'll have to deal with. It may not exist for you, but it does exist for others. Yes, because they are in that consciousness. They are in the ego consciousness. So for them, it will remain. Okay? So suppose I am in a cosmic consciousness and I am looking at all the others. Okay? I can see that they are suffering or they are not suffering. And if they are not suffering, I can say that they are not living in an egoistic consciousness. But if I see suffering, I can say clearly that they are living in an egoistic consciousness. That's why it is happening. But you don't see the evil, you see it as a circumstance. And if you are like Mother and Suyamdo, your grace and compassion also goes out to them. Okay? But they have to receive that grace and compassion to be able to cure their own suffering. Okay, so this is the question. Now, the question is, at what juncture of cosmic manifestation the opposites come in? Okay, that's a question that he has to sort out. The question is, at what juncture of cosmic manifestation the opposites enter in? For it may be either at some stage of the increasing involution of consciousness in separating mind and life, or only after the plunge into the inconscious. So he's saying there are 7 planes of consciousness. So are evil and suffering, can they come into the higher planes of consciousness, or are they only there at the lowest level, the 7th, that material world? Okay, so he's asking the question. For it may be either at some stage of the increasing evolution of consciousness in separative mind and life, or only after the plunge into inconscience. Okay. Is it coming from matter, or is it coming from some other planes of consciousness higher than matter? This resolves itself into the question whether falsehood, error, wrong and evil exist originally in the mental and vital worlds and are native to mind and life, or are proper only to the material manifestation because inflicted on mind and life there by the obscurity arising from the inconscious. It may be questioned too whether, if they do exist in supraphysical mind and life, They were original and inevitable there, for they may rather have entered in as a consequence or a supraphysical extension from the material manifestation. Or, if that is untenable, it may be that they arose as an enabling supraphysical affirmation. Now, what does it mean by that? It means, do they exist in seed form, a potential possibility that then flowers into the lower manifestation? That's what he's asking. Okay, they may not be there openly, but are they hidden? Are they potentially there? Is falsehood there potentially in truth? That's the question he's asking. In other words, are they already potential in the supraphysical overmind where the many originate, thus enabling falsehood and error to sprout and blossom? Just 1 minute. I was reading my note. Okay, so just 1 second. That note is interesting. Yeah. He's saying, surrounded by ignorance. I'll read that note again fully, okay? About truth, okay? Truth at the mental level is relative because our knowledge is partial, surrounded by ignorance. Man's vision is limited to the superficial physical level, which is really an appearance only, which veils the essential truth of things. Even when we go deeper than the surface, it's only guesswork, inferences and hints, and never the undoubted reality. Not only is our sight limited and faulty, but our expression of what is seen or experienced is only through language, which is nothing but words. And words are representations, images, pictures, shadows, never the real thing. So there are 4 types of knowledge: indirect separate, sense knowledge; direct separative; and derivative identity, complete identity. The last 2 need not be subject to error, though limitation may be there. The first 2 are never the authentic knowledge. Ignorance exists by limitation of knowledge. Error is a deviation from truth. Falsehood is a distortion, contradiction, or denial of truth. But it cannot be said of knowledge that it exists by diminution and abeyance of ignorance, even though knowledge may give that impression to the human mind. Knowledge is an independent, self-existent principle in the supreme state of existence. The time is gone, so we'll discuss this tomorrow again once more. Okay? It's a very interesting question. He asked finding out where is it coming from? How does this even come? Okay? It's quite complicated. We'll look at it more in detail tomorrow. Okay?
And thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Au revoir, everybody.
Thank you, Rangada.